Hi, I'm Kirsty. I'm a baking business owner turned website designer who runs Bake This Happen, which offers website design and templates for bakeries and home baking businesses. Today we're doing a website tech video. We are going to look at adding a pop-up onto your website. So if you've ever been on a website and then maybe after a few seconds or whenever you go to leave the page, you get a little box that pops up to either share an offer with you, ask you to sign up to their newsletter, share some information with you. So those are really handy for telling people about maybe new flavors that you've got or asking people to sign up to your newsletter. So maybe you're offering them something, maybe a guide to cutting cakes or planning their party, and then asking them to sign up to your newsletter. So it's a really simple process and we will go through that in this video.
You'll be able to add a pop-up to your Squarespace website by first selecting marketing. Then we're looking for the promotional pop-up option. So you'll see this is a premium feature, so you do have to be on the business plan or higher within Squarespace. And then once we've styled everything up, you will be able to turn this on and it will be available on your page. So the first thing we can do is select which layout we would like by selecting Change Layout. And then you'll see there are various different layout options for the pop-up. It can be just plain text, or there's different configurations of text with an image above, the image behind. So this is really going to depend on what information you're using this pop-up for. If it's one of your products in particular, I would definitely choose a image and text option. If it's just maybe that you're going to be at a fair or market coming up, you could probably get away with just doing a text version. However, I do think the image version is very eye-catching and memorable. There are also some full screen options, so this would cover the screen with an image, so where you can see that grey kind of triangular pattern in the background would actually be an image, and people could close that down with this little X in the corner, or it could be an image with the text but still taking up that full screen. So for this example, I'm just going to select this first option that still allows people to see the screen behind, but we've got the image and our text. Then we'll just work our way through the steps, and Squarespace does take you through everything sort of quite sequentially, so it does make sense. First, we've got action. So this is basically the purpose of your pop-up. What do you want people to do when they see this pop-up? If you want them to sign up to your newsletter, mostly they're set up that way already, so you can leave that. I would say if you're using the newsletter option, this would work best with Squarespace's own email newsletter software, or if you're using MailChimp. Those two do integrate quite seamlessly. If you're using another service, Flowdesk, MailerLite, something like that, ConvertKit, then what I would suggest is selecting the button option and then having a page on your website or just the actual landing page from your newsletter provider and adding that link in here. So you could still say something like sign up here, but in this box you would either send them to the page on your website for your newsletter or your newsletter landing page that's given to you by your provider. For this example, we are going to be directing people towards our shop. So we are going to say shop here. And then in the link section, if we select this gear icon, then select page, we can then select one of the pages on our own website, and in this case we're looking for shop, and then save. And then we will save again. Next up is the content. So this refers to the text within this pop-up. The first option is for the headline, and then we've got the sort of subheading or the body. So we are going to say check out our new brownie flavor, and then maybe something like seasonal delicious new brownies and blondies. Of course, you will have much more appropriate text in here, but whatever is, oh, we've got a little typo, whatever is going to most clearly and in kind of as few words as possible tell people about the thing you're sharing with them. So if it's a market, say something like, catch us on the 27th of March, and then maybe give details about what the market's called. And this link here could potentially link to, if the market has their own website, you could send people there. I wouldn't normally recommend sending people away from your website, but in this case, you're obviously wanting to encourage people to attend this market or farmer's market. So I think in that case, it is a useful thing to do. Once you're happy with your text, we will select save. Next on the list here is display and timing. So that refers to how long, or I should say, what triggers this pop-up to appear on your website. So the first question is, where do we want the pop-up to appear? So any first page means even if somebody comes to your website and lands initially on one of your blog posts or your gallery page, this pop-up will still appear. The second option is only on certain pages. So you can select which pages you want this pop-up to appear on. I think for most people, having it on all pages is going to be perfectly appropriate. Times where you maybe don't want it to be on every single page is if you have maybe a customer only page, so a secret page just for your customers. You know they've already bought from you, they are invested in you, you maybe don't want to be bothering them with a pop-up. So that could be an occasion where you don't want the pop-up to appear. But for this example, we will just say any first page. Then we've got the timing. So the default option is timer and scroll. So that means after 5 seconds, this pop-up will appear, or once somebody has scrolled 25% down the page, this pop-up will appear. You can choose to only have the timer or only have the scroll. I think timer and scroll is good. Personally, I prefer to extend this to 10 seconds. I think 5's a bit short. People are maybe just sort of getting their bearings after landing on your website. You don't want to bug them with a pop-up kind of immediately before they can even kind of take in what's on your homepage. Frequency refers to how often somebody will see it once they've dismissed it. So this will kind of remember if a person's been to your site within the last, like you can see here, the next day, 1 week, 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks or 30 days is probably appropriate. Again, you don't want to be annoying people with a pop-up, but you are sharing useful information with them, so it's a perfectly acceptable thing to do. But I think the next day would be a bit much, so we can say 2 weeks. And then you can say don't show again if they've signed up to your newsletter, or to show or not show on mobile. So we will save our options. Next is to set the image. So like I mentioned, this sort of grey triangle graphic is actually where our image is going to sit. So click anywhere on this box. We can search for an image that exists on our website already. So we could pick one of these images, or we can upload an image from our computer. So I will upload this image here. And this will just give you an idea of, so you can see it really sort of comes to life now. You'll be able to see which images are going to work best depending on the layout of the form that you have chosen. So the last option is to style up our pop-up to make it match the rest of our branding. So we can choose our colours, choose our fonts. The one very annoying thing that Squarespace has not quite implemented yet is that it doesn't actually pull any of the styles from your site. So you'll remember when we're working on our Squarespace website, we would set up our colour palette and our font palette, which is then available when we're styling the entire site. Unfortunately, the form or the pop-up isn't connected to that. So do remember to have your style guide handy so you can check your font hex codes, your colour hex codes and your font names. So the font that we are using on this website is called Oswald, I believe. And you can then set up all of the styling as you normally would, just to get it looking consistent with your website. So we will choose this dark brown for the text. Our body font is Open Sans, I believe. So we probably want to make that a little bit thicker, and we can increase the font size here. And you can play around with this, see what works best. Don't worry about kind of getting it all right first time. The body font we will just match with that dark brown. Next up is the background. So the first colour background is actually referring to this kind of overlay in the background. Then we've got colour behind text, which is this box here. And you'll see if you just kind of mess around with that. But I think we will leave that as white. And you can see again, if you just change this, how that kind of differs. Then we've got the auto overlay colour. So that's referring to just the overlay over this image. And you can see after we've turned that on, it's become quite greyed. So I don't think that's very nice. We can just turn that off. Then we've got our button options. So a stacked button will just kind of change the appearance of it, and you can have a play around, see what's going to work best. We'll match this font with our body font. So the useful thing is once you set the title and body, it will remember it at least for your button. So that saves us a little bit of time. And we will just make this a little thicker by increasing the weight. I think we could make the size of the text a little bigger. Everything else looks good. We just want to change the colour now. Let's grab this red. That will be nice and eye-catching for people. And I think the white text is fine. So there's a couple other options down here. If you set up a newsletter, you would have additional text just as that disclaimer, so you could customize that also. There's the close button. You can have this as the word close. It can be up in the corner, which I think is really difficult for people to see. So I do prefer to keep it inside. And I also prefer the X, but we can set the color for that if we would like. In fact, let's just make that blue to keep everything very on brand. Then there's the animation options. So whether you want it to slide in from below, fade in, or kind of scale up, so personal preference of course. These advanced overlay designs is to do with basically the position of this pop-up. So you can have a play around with what padding you see on the left, right and top. You can add a border to this if you would like, and it gives you border width options. So you can kind of decide how far you want to go with your customizations. And if you're happy with how it's looking, you can just disable that. The last bit of styling here are mobile styles. And we can check how this is looking on mobile by selecting this mobile preview up in the top corner. So by default, it will remove the image, and that's just to make it easier for people to view on a mobile. If we add that image, it would become too big and be quite difficult for people to see. So again, sort of same processes, we can change the colour behind the text. And actually, I think in this case, that would work quite well. Because this is sitting on top of a white web page, setting this little pop-up to have a background colour will actually make it stand out quite nicely. If we get our dark brown again, we can set this up for our colours. And maybe the button stays brown so it's not too much. You can see the fonts have carried over, so no need to set those again. And that's us. So we head back to our desktop, check everything's still looking perfect there. So the last thing is to just remember to save all of our changes. So that's you. Once you're happy with how that's styled, just make sure that's turned on. Of course, if you're on the business plan or the commerce plan, commerce advanced, you'll be able to have this enabled, and you'll be able to attract more customers to your shop or attract more signups to your newsletter, tell your customers whatever you need to tell them via this pop-up.